Caste-icide carefully and courageously debunks the false and misleading propaganda around the so-called caste system and argues persuasively that is in fact it is a colonial construct superimposed upon the Indian society. The e-book edition was launched recently and the print version is here with us, brought to us by the Hindu e-shop for you to purchase and get it signed by the author himself. The Hindi translation is also on its way. From way of introductions, Śrī Mahalingam Balaji garu hails from a lineage of Vedic scholars and Agnihotris who moved to secular occupations a generation ago. He has had a successful career in the corporate sector for nearly 3 decades, having held many leadership positions in India and abroad. As a corporate leader and research director, he is well known for his thought leadership and extensive experience in setting up global research and analytics teams and mentoring research teams at scale. So he's no stranger to rigorous research and fearless articulation. Many of you may also recall his earlier work, Brahmin Genocide, a deeply researched volume that exposed the dangerous rhetoric and ideological roots of anti-Brahmin propaganda. We could contribute in a small way through illustrations and a well-received review of the book that is on our website. Alongside his literary work, he also has filed a public interest litigation in the Tamil Nadu courts, challenging the outdated Aryan invasion theory that's still taught in our schools, unfortunately. With Caste-icide, he carries forward his mission of decolonizing our minds and reclaiming a truthful Bharatiya narrative, a mission we are also fully with, sir, on this at Brhat. We're also deeply honored to have with us 3 highly distinguished dignitaries this evening, today, whose presence lends to us immense weight to the launch of this book. Firstly, Dr. Karnam Arvind Rao Garaji. He's a retired Director General. He's a retired Director General of Police, Andhra Pradesh. Beyond his illustrious career in public service, he's a serious student of our civilizational knowledge systems. He studied Sanskrit under Mahopadhyaya Padma Shri, Dr. Shri Pullela Sri Ramachandrudu garu, and Vedanta under Mahopadhyaya Swami Tattvavidananda Saraswati garu. He has also authored several acclaimed books on Hindu philosophy, contributing greatly to the dissemination of our timeless wisdom. Thank you for being with us, sir. Shri L.V. Subramaniam ji, he belongs to the 1983 Andhra Pradesh cadre of the Indian Administrative Service. He has served the nation with distinction, including as the Chief Secretary of Andhra Pradesh. He also served in the important role of Endowments Officer at the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanams, where he worked closely with temple traditions and their governance. His deep administrative experience, combined with his engagement with dharmic institutions, makes his presence today very special for us. Grateful, sir, for your support. And Mannam Nageshwar Rao Garu. He's a distinguished retired police officer of the Indian Police Service, 1986 batch, Odisha cadre. He served the nation in various capacities, including as Joint Director of the Central Bureau of Investigation. He was entrusted with the responsibility of leading the CBI as its interim director. Thank you so much for your presence. I now invite Sri Raghava Krishna Garu, a founder of Brhat, to deliver the welcome address and also set today's agenda in place. Thank you.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you to the distinguished guests and the writer. I think Thomas Sowell, famously said that we've traded what works for what sounds good. I think that's very pertinent in the context of what we're experiencing today, because you can judge the quality of public discourse by the ideas that are not allowed to be discussed. We talk about freedoms, we talk about liberties, we talk about an intellectual landscape, but there is, unfortunately, an air cover and a ceiling that we experience. I think Sai Deepak ji pointed this pretty poignantly in his book. He said, how do you recognize the value of something, the existence of which you have not been allowed to discover? So I think the Indian journey, and particularly the Hindu journey, is twofold. It is to first recognize the loss and then recognize the value of what we've lost. And in this journey, there are certain narratives that are advanced because the entire political economy is organized around it. And there are certain narratives that are not allowed to be advanced because it is not in the political interest. I think the job of an independent intellectual class, the people who really care for the society, is to talk about things that are not often bought out because the system is stacked against it. And in this, I can only genuinely thank and pray and offer our gratitude for your success, sir. Thank you so much for bringing this out. Because I think in the last 10, 15 years, we can say that we made certain advances in certain Hindu interests and civilizational narratives. Right? You can think about how secularism was conceptualized even a decade and a half ago and where we are today. But the same cannot be said about the role of the state in advancing and perpetuating conflict amongst the Hindu society by actually making different groups fight for the public purse. And because the political economy is organized around it, and because everybody is incentivized to play that game, we are not able to have a civilizational discourse that actually unites us in our interests. So I think your work is seminal in the context that it not only brings a data-centric approach to this, but I think a bigger contribution is that it breaks the shackles of fear that we've self-imposed. So I thank you. I welcome you to Hyderabad. Thank you for giving us time and the opportunity to launch your book. I now formally announce the launch of this book, and we cannot ask for a greater panel than this because each of them have been an inspiration for Brhat and for the civilizational discourse in this area. So thank you. With this, we announce the launch of the book, and we'll have a discussion. And now I invite the man himself, sir. Please come, address, and tell us about it.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Are you able to easily me? Namaste to all of you. Namaste to Dr. Arvindra Garu. Namaste to Shri Nageshwar Rao Garu. Namaste to L.V. Subramaniam Garu. And namaste to all the audience over here. I think it's a special occasion for me because the first time I am being in Hyderabad, right, and meeting all of you over here. The other reason why it's a privilege for me is I've been interacting with Dr. Arvindra Garu for almost now 2.5 years, and with Raghava Krishna Garu and the Brhat team for almost 2+ years. So they have been providing unwavering support and enthusiastic commitment to the cause. Right? So that has been a great happening with Brhat and with Dr. Arvindra Garu. And I know they are doing it for not just this, for many other causes as well. Right? So let's give them a big hand of applause for their work. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So how did this book come about? After the first book was launched, the Brahmin Genocide book, after a period of time, a few of the parents started contacting me, both from India and from abroad. Then it became more and more parents have started calling me. Their problem was that the younger generation was not keen to practice the Dharma. They had a lot of doubts about Dharma. They actually started having something like, oh, Hinduism is all discrimination, Hinduism is all hierarchy, Hinduism has got this problem, that problem. Something like what we can almost call as self-hate was happening. So they were reaching out, and now that we have all these phone conferencing facilities and others, so they used to put their younger generation onto this, saying, can you please talk to them? And I was answering some of those questions. Nowadays, the younger generation doesn't want to just take their word. Right? At least in my time, and my father says something, that is the end of the argument. Right? There is no other argument after that. Right? He says something, that is what it is. Right? So the only argument is they get a chance to agree. Either I agree or disagree, but still I have to do it. Right? So that is how it was. But now the younger generation say, can you please give me the source for it? Then they want to do Google, and then they have some more questions on this. So when all this was happening, at some point, some of the dharmic friends who were involved and also some of the parents said, now you're helping us with all these answers. Why don't you collect it into a book, right? And then we will publish it as another book. So when the first book came, actually, I said I am an accidental writer. So the second time also I became an accidental writer because these all are not compiled, and then it became the book actually. Right? So what is this book actually about? Right? So the next question is, so whatever we take from today's, and that's also part of the 10-step plan, is as much as possible we should start using the word Varna Jati system, and that has been our system, and we can be proud of it. There is no discrimination in that. There is no issues with that. We should stop using the word caste system. Right? So that is the first request, a humble request to all of you. Because the caste system as itself has become an important marker for our civilization. Right? In fact, it is so ubiquitous that most Hindus actually think that there is such a system which existed and it is discriminatory, it is non-egalitarian, so all these things are there. There is a book called Castes of Mind written by Dr. Nicholas Dirks, and it starts with the phrase, and I will just quote this. When thinking of India, it's hard not to think of caste. Without the caste, I'm not able to think of India. That is what this person is saying. In comparative sociology and in common parlance alike, caste has become a central symbol for India, indexing it as a fundamentally different from other places as well as expressing its essence. So it's like we are very different, and every Hindu who is born or has been born or is going to be born today somehow is magnetically getting attracted to this discriminatory system called caste system. Right? So no one knows why, but keeps happening, it has been happening, and it will continue to happen. That is the theory. Right? A long history of writing from the grand treatise of the Abbé Dubois to the general anthropology of Louis Dumas, from the piles of statistic and descriptive volumes of British colonial census starting in 1872 to the eye-catching headlines of the New York Times, I have identified caste as a basic form of Indian society. This is what Nicholas Dirks says, professor. Now, there is also a newspaper report which I have quoted in the book also. Professor Ramachandra Guha, he has stated that caste system is the most rigorous, most diabolical system of social stratification ever invented by humans, and we Hindus have invented it. Okay. So now the question which comes up is, what is this caste system actually? Is there a sociologically, legally accepted definition of caste system? Does it exist? Is anyone aware of this in this audience? Actually, the fact is, none seems to exist. Okay. So, there are so many assertions about this caste system. So, in this book, I have attempted with Ishwara Kripa to go into those assumptions to actually see that there is no factual basis for these narratives. They just exist. Right? So, most of the popular notions are not supported by facts, and hence we can say that the caste system, as such, the word, is a product of Western imagination. It is a myth. There is no such thing like a caste system. So, having said that, there is another popular myth, and this myth is that Brahmins created and instituted a caste system and imposed it on the rest of the population of India. This has been categorically refuted by none other than Baba Sahib Dr. B.R. Ambedkar himself in his books. But still, that myth is very popular and it continues to exist today. So this is one of the myths. Okay. So then what is it about this title called Caste-icide? Caste-icide means it's a cultural attack on the Bharatiya civilization, primarily using narratives like caste system, caste hierarchy, non-egalitarian, and caste discrimination. What is the goal? The goal is to dehumanize Hindus, right, globally, and then lay the foundation for what I call as a cultural genocide of the population. And how do they do that? They at least seek to achieve this by dividing and fracturing the Hindu society along caste lines. In fact, Professor G.S. Gurye is one of the first sociologists in India to have pointed out that after the Sepoy Mutiny, they called it the 1857 First War of Independence, we choose to call it, the British found out that dividing India as much as possible, right? However ways, by religious ways and by caste, everything is part of their going to help them in staying back in colonial power. So Professor G.S. Gurye has talked about how the caste as an element is actually quite divisive and being used as such by the colonial records. So it unleashes a malicious anti-Hindu narrative, right? Shaping negative perceptions about Hinduism. And what it does is it instills self-hatred among Hindus. Right? So that is the biggest challenge we will face as we get into the next generations. Now, first question which will come up is, are you trying to kind of deny all this discrimination which existed? I heard about this discrimination. I heard an anecdote about some discrimination somebody told me. So let me categorically state that there is no way that anybody will like to support or whitewash or to say that it didn't happen, that discrimination has no place in any society. So we should all reject it and condemn it. All we need to do is to examine the system, the so-called caste system, which they say, which is an institutionalized form, which is supposed to happen. So let's take an example. Right? So what we are saying here is, the British have documented that Brahmins avoided certain communities by saying that they only presented one side of the story. The fact is that some communities also avoided Brahmins. In fact, Baba Sahib Dr. Ambedkar himself has categorically pointed this phenomena in the British records, wherein it says that some groups thought Brahmins as impure. They forbade them from passing through their streets. And this is British colonial writing. Right? And if a Brahmin dared to enter their house, they may even slipper him to death. And so this is how some acharas were. Right? And this is a statement of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar itself, which says that this statement that some communities look upon the Brahmin as an impure person is sure to come to them as a matter of great surprise. Right? Because that is only the one side that they have recorded. Now, why did the society chose to behave in certain way? Right? There has to be a logical reason. Right? People don't do it randomly. Right? So, scholar by name Dr. Mailavarupu Sudhamohan Garu, I think some of you may know him, he's an eminent scholar. So he has actually pointed out to Tantra Shastras holding the clue to that, because many of the other communities were practicing tantric practices, and it is what we call as Achara Bheda, which led to mutual separation, because certain things cannot coexist. Like supposing we have different systems of medicine. We have Siddha medicine, we have Ayurveda medicine, we have allopathic medicine. So if some person decides that, okay, I need to get a faster cure, he cannot take all the three medicines. Right? So it is not going to work that way. So when even the English doctors will say, allopathic doctors will say, please don't go to Ayurveda. Right? Or I don't know about it at the best. Right? They will say, please don't take two together. Right? Same thing will happen with this. So this mutual separation is what has led into, because of the Achara Bheda, and the British misclassified it as discrimination. So now, this is Dr. Sudhamohan Garu, again I quote him, Brahmins have been coexisting with the same rituals and same kulas for more than 1,000 years, without trying to eradicate these rituals by force. Colonial rulers could not tolerate these rituals for even a century and worked at a feverish pace to eliminate them. Yet, it is Vaidikam that is projected as being discriminatory. And what does he mean by that? There are thousands of native temples which existed during the British colonial period, and they call them as demonolatry. They call them as pay coils. Right? Pay is a form of what we can call as Rakshas or maybe a ghost, something like that. Right? So pay coils, devil worshipping. Right? Devil may be another proper form to say that. And I saw one colonial record in a place called South Travancore. It's a small samastana, southern part, now part of Kerala now. 20,000 such temples were demolished. And this is from colonial records itself. And why did they do that? Because they thought that these are demon worshipping. Right? And yet, whom did they blame for non-egalitarian? Whom did they blame for discrimination? They blamed it on the Brahmins. Right? So, in the cover of the book, you will see an image of a goddess, Paramasati. So this Paramasati's history goes like this Murti was in South Travancore, and the British colonials partly burnt it, and then they shipped it to UK. So somewhere in February, I actually got some writings about that, and it's in the front flap of the book. I would have given the description of Paramasati. So then I contacted the Honorable External Affairs Ministry and Culture Ministry. They actually took the effort to go and then find it in the London Museum. So this Murti, which was burnt and taken 200 years back, it is there now, but it's not in the display, but it is in one of those archives, they call it. So it's very nice of them. So I thank them for that they took the effort to find it. Now the next step is we need to get it back, because that will be a symbol that Sanatana is still being practiced in all its forms in India, that we cannot just abide by what the British gave us one side of their view. So now, so far I talked about, I think, what is this caste system myth, and it is a product of Western imagination. I spoke about what is there in the book content. Right? Now, let's look at some more things. Right? And we talked about the mutual separation I just spoke about. Now, how to address this caste system myth? Right? We all say it is a myth, right? Okay, now I have come here and said, but why do you have to believe me? Right? Nowadays, people ask, can you please give me the proof? Right? The first question you can ask whenever there is a debate is, okay, this system is caste system. What is the definition of it? Do you have a legal and sociological definition? Answer, no. Then the next question which comes up is, when and how did it actually start? Did it start in one particular time? Did it start in one particular place? Supposing it started in one particular place, or did it start in all of a sudden everybody in the Bharat at that time decided let's have this new system, right? Let's go and implement it from tomorrow, right? It's like what we had that during Corona period we had a lockdown, right? So we all decided to lock down, from tomorrow we are changing the system. That something should have existed before, right? Then they changed it, right? So this is the sociology's version, right? So how did they change it? Right? And if they did it, even we saw in this now lockdown also, with so much of communication tools, with so much of law enforcement machinery, government machinery, we still had to really take a few days to get everybody to understand what is this lockdown about and then effectively implement it in this Bharat. Imagine the Bharat where multiple kings were there, right? And then the geography was so difficult to travel, and there was no communication, internet, whatsoever not. But how did they then decide all of a sudden to decide, let's do it from tomorrow? But okay, let's say that then, okay, they didn't do it from tomorrow, one day, fine. They did it from one region to another, it gradually spread. If it spread, then why would people in another kingdom who form a majority would like to get what they call a socially inferior status? Why would they accept it? Even today, I think Sarah has quoted about how different states in our own country are saying that, oh no, this policy is not good for me, right? I'm not going to use it. So why would different kings accept that, okay, so some new system has come, oh, let's try and implement it and let's all become socially inferior ourselves? It doesn't stand any logical analysis. Now, the other thing which they will say is, there is a characteristic of caste system, they will say, it's called endogamy. Okay, the word is called endogamy. So what that word means is, it is a custom of marrying within the limits of community. So, okay, that is what is endogamy is what technically I am reading that. Right? So now let's take an example. I will take the Brahmana Varna, right? Brahmanas. Brahmanas in India are broadly divided into two categories, Pancha Dravida Brahmins and Pancha Gauda Brahmins. Under Pancha Dravida Brahmins, Telugu Brahmins come in, Tamil Brahmins come in, Maharashtra and even Gurjaras, the Gujaratis also come in. Now let's take Tamil Brahmins for easier sake, right? Now, for Tamil Brahmins, again, there are different sampradayas. One sampradaya you can call it as Śrī Vaishnavas and Smartas. Again, there is a broader sampradaya division. Śrī Vaishnavas are popularly, they call them as Iyengars. This is how they are identified as. Now, within Iyengar, there is a northern sect which is called the Vadakalai sect, they call it the northern, and then there is a southern sect called the Tenkalai Sampradaya. Now, 100 years back, let's assume that a person, right, he or she, is looking for a marriage partner. Are they going to look for a Brahmin to be married? I don't think so. They are going to look for a Brahmin, a Pancha Dravida Brahmin, a Tamil Brahmin, and the two Iyengar Brahmin and a Vadakale Iyengar Brahmin. And actually, they will also look for one more person not in the same Gotra. You're right. Right? So that Gotra part, we will keep it aside. That's a separate one. Now, endogamy is being practiced at what level as per the sociology's own definition? It is being practiced at Vadakalai Iyengar level. So is that the caste? As per the definition, then this should be the caste. If it is the caste, then what do we make of the other words? What does the word Iyengar mean? What does the word Panchagoda mean? What does the word even Brahmin mean? So then they start inventing new words. They say, oh, this is the sub-caste. Then there is a higher, this is the higher level caste, there is a sub-caste. So actually they created the whole higher, lower, all these words come from them. So that is the danger in using the word caste. Because then my question is, if a word is going to help us to describe our society better, let's all do that. Because if we are getting a new tool to solve a problem, let's do that. But by inventing a word called caste, we are actually creating a new term and we are creating so many other problems with it. So we should actually not use the word caste. And I quote E.A. Gate, the Census Commissioner of 1911, he says, the caste is, we are thinking the caste is very stationary, but it is, he described it beautifully as, it is like the hour hand of a clock. The hour hand of a clock moves, but it moves very, we can't find it, right? You can't catch it. It is moving, but we can't see it immediately. Same way he says, I see that suddenly there is a group of people, they move, the caste moves its demography, from one place to another geographically, not demography. So geographically they move, they take up another profession, or sometimes they start worshipping a different murti. Then what happens after some point of time, that particular set of people start withdrawing themselves from the marriage society. Then they start marrying, the marriages happen among that particular set of people. And he says, now a new caste is formed. So this is how he himself is describing. But now we are saying that, oh, there has been a fixed number of castes. Now, another argument, and I will give it as an example. Let's assume a child is born today in Hyderabad, right, somewhere nearby in a maternity hospital. So the previous generation of this child is its parents. So father, mother, two. The previous generation to that is their grandparents. That is, mother side, father, mother, father side again, father, mother, right? Grandparents too. So 4 grandparents. So if you go to the third, then this is the second generation. Now we go to the third previous generation, it will become 8 because the 4 of them would have had 2 parents each. So this is what is, I think, mathematically known as 2 power n series. So this 2 power n series, so supposing we say 2 power 4 is 16. So 4 generations back, the ancestors would have been 16. Let's say 10 generations back, ancestors would have been 1024, 1024. That is the math. Now, the 2 power series has a very interesting phenomenon. Once you go to 2 power 15, the number becomes 32,000. Yeah, that's okay. But 2 power 20 will become 10 lakhs. And 2 power 30 will become 1 billion. That is the math. Now this child which is born today, 30 generations back, it should have technically had 1 billion ancestors. Okay. But there is something wrong there, right? Because if 30 generations back, what you are talking, if you are taking 3 generations as 100 years, let's say 1 century, right? Because a grandfather, father and the child would have been there, right? So in 3 generations, 100 years. 30 generations means 10 centuries. 21st century, 10, 11th century. 10, 11th century, the world population itself was maybe not more than 35. There is an estimate that 27 to 40 is the estimate, different estimates. But let's take 35 as the midpoint, 35 crores. So this is obviously something I'm calculating wrong. The calculation wrong is because everybody is not unique individual. Each of these grandparents we are calculating separate, but they are not, because there are marriages which happen in second cousins, and so one particular ancestor, as the generation goes, will come in multiple places in the family tree. So that has to be eliminated. There are mathematical models for that. So I quote one such model. So the one such model says, okay, you don't take this 1 billion, you should take around 0.095, something like that. So let's let's not do too much math now, right? Today, Saturday morning is not too much for math. Let's take 0.1%. 0.1% means 10 lakh. Now you all will say, okay, 10 lakh ancestors, possible, right? It is because 30 generations back. Now, here is the caste thing, right? As per the British own census, in South India alone, we had 350 plus castes. So, which means, as per their own endogamy theory, each set of people should have different ancestors. So now you multiply 350 by 10 lakhs, you are getting 35 plus crores. The whole entire world population should have been sitting in South India, right? So when I explain this math, then immediately some of the sociologists actually call me. So, sir, are you saying that then intercaste marriage happened that time? Let's see, they're not seeing their problem. Right? They're asking the next level question. Now I say, sir, first of all, the whole point is you as sociology and as Indology and with all your scholarly thing have presented a case that there is a caste system and there is endogamy. All I'm saying is mathematically it is not coming right. So you have to argue with me whether it is correct or not. Right? Don't say that, no, are you saying something happened? I am saying caste itself didn't exist. It is only Varna Jati. Right? We'll start with that. So the point I am telling them is, please start looking at our dharma and our civilization from our own lens. Right? Let's not borrow alien lenses. Okay, so the phenomenon which I described now, that's called pedigree collapse in mathematics. So if some of you want to kind of look for it, you can look for it. Sorry? Okay. So now there is a Bernard Cohen, and he is beautifully suggested it, and I will put this over here. He says British simultaneously misrecognized and simplified things Indian, imprisoning the Indian subject into the typecast role it assigned under the name of tradition. He says, in the conceptual scheme which the British created to understand and to act in India, they constantly followed the same logic. They reduced vastly complex codes and associated meetings to a few metonyms. India was redefined by the British to be a place of rules and orders. Once the British defined the rules to their own satisfaction, which they constructed, then the Indians have to conform to those standards. And which is what, unfortunately, because we adopted many of the colonial era practices after the independence, we are actually following the same thing. We are living the life of what the British think we should be living. Right? That is unfortunate. There are a lot of benefits in taking over those systems which the colonials left, right? So there is always benefits there. But the biggest disadvantage is the history, the civilizational discourse, all these should have been decolonized before, but unfortunately they were not. Right? So the world view, I call it, it is called the post-Renaissance view today. It is not just we are not living, the entire world is living this post-Renaissance view. What is this post-Renaissance view? It says that we can have two hypotheses. One is all the human ancestors, I'm not even talking India, the entire world's ancestors were actually secular, but something happened to them and then they, in between, they went wrong, right? They did something wrong. After Renaissance, we are now on the right path. That is one way of explaining the Renaissance. The second way to say is that this is an evolutionary process. So we actually have studied our ancestors across the globe, and we found that, right, there are certain practices which were we can improve upon, and then we have improved upon. That is also possible. But question is, have we actually studied those practices? So did we actually study our ancient civilizations across the globe? In UK, if you go, you will see the Stonehenges. Right? Some of you might have traveled and you have seen. So why would the ancestors of the present day UK will transport what we call as sarsen stones and blue stones, which were weighing a few tons in those olden times, or hundreds of kilometers? And they arranged it in such a way that it has a certain significance with the solstices. Right? And if you see the Inca civilization, they built huge structures in the Andean mountains. Why did they build it? And again, they had even a sun dial, when they had a sun temple, they call it. Why did those civilizations take such great pains to construct all these monuments? Do we even know? Right? At least there is one record of Tibetan monks actually having used sound energy with drums and with vocal chanting to move a rock from down the hill to up the hill. Okay. So this is not some what they call nowadays as WhatsApp university knowledge. Right? So Henry Chelson, who was a Swedish aircraft pioneer, he had actually witnessed this, and he had actually given the diagram also to us. Right? He is an engineer by design. Right? He has given that. So the case is not that okay. Let's from tomorrow let's stop all Hyderabad construction with all cranes and all are not required. Let's all use drums. That's not the point. The point is, do we know what our ancestors did with the sound energy? Maybe they know something about it. And it has a relation to us because mantras are all based on sound. They have a sound energy based. So, or is there some things to be done? Have we even read about them? Have we even done some research about them? No. Right? We have just taken the words. Right? In fact, we are so colonized that I give this example of a word called mumbo jumbo. Right? Some of you might have heard the word called mumbo jumbo. The mumbo jumbo is meaning that something is very confusing, something is very we cannot understand it, then they say, okay, it's a legal mumbo jumbo, they'll say. Right? Typically they use it, the jargon, something. But the mumbo jumbo words actually comes from, I think, the 200, 250 years back. Some colonial person visited a West African tribe and they were performing a certain ritual. And he couldn't understand it. So he said, this is a mumbo jumbo. So the word was very, they had a similar word to that in the, I think, the Mandingo language. And he said, okay, this is all mumbo jumbo. Right? And we borrowed this. So every time when somebody uses the word mumbo jumbo, we're actually kind of not even, what should I say, dishonoring the ancestors of our African brothers. Because we don't know what the ritual was. So why call it as incomprehensible? Why use a word for it? Right? Same thing, the word called juggernaut. The juggernaut had actually a negative connotation when it started, and it was with Lord Jagannath. Right? Now that word is now meant, I think the negative connotation has been taken out, but it still says it's a very powerful force, unstoppable force it means. So this is how the colonial origins of the words themselves are. Right? And it's not a theoretical study because most of our native medical practices were tied to our tantric dress. So if we lose them, we also lose our native medical practices. So it's very important for us to get this. Now, if we want to challenge this, how do we do that? The next question is, okay, all this is fine, but how do we change this? I think we have to begin this journey somewhere by asking these questions. Okay. And Ishwara Kripa, in our own humble words, and thanks to all of your support, Brhat's support, and Dr. Ravindra's support, we started with the Brahmin genocide questions. And then there was a case on the Aryan invasion. So now I have fought this case in the Honorable Madras High Court, and I appeared as a party in person. There is a provision in the Advocate Act where I can represent the case myself. So the Honorable Court allowed me to do that. So then they gave me a personal hearing with NCRT and with the SCERT, they call it the textbook societies. So now we have confirmation that the Aryan is not a race and there was no Aryan invasion. Okay. So we have it in government records now. But they also still say that there is a migration which has happened. Right? So several views of linguistic migration might have happened. But why was this important was, if you study 70% of the caste system literature, it will say that there were three varnas discriminated against the fourth varna because they were one particular race of warriors who conquered, that the fourth varna was the conquered and subjugated one, and that's why. Now you can ask these questions. So if you look at the Vaishyas and the Shudra community, they actually had the economic muscle and the numerical strength. If everybody is of the same race, more logical that these two would have oppressed the other two, right? Why would they allow to the other Varna to do it? Why couldn't it be the other way? Right? So we could ask all these questions. Right? So that is one foundational pillar of the caste system narrative which has been broken. The second one is the caste hierarchy. They use the Purusha Sutta. And I had put out a video and I had also offered a 50,000 rupee prize for anyone who can prove that whatever I am claiming is wrong. Right, as a debate, and I think Sir has talked about having debates, right, to encourage debates and have the dialogue, and it is almost now, I think, close to 10 to 12 months. No one has come forward. Right? So we have take out that the Purusha Sukta hierarchy is gone now, right? We get more or less. Now the third one to now do is this caste system and this discrimination. Hindus were practicing discrimination. Hindus were discriminating against each other. Non-egalitarian society. They had hierarchical society. All that we can disprove now. Ishwara Kripa, and with all your support, let's do that, right? And that is how this big book is making a beginning for this. Right? So the next effort we are doing is called the Brahmin protection. So which I think is because of the hate speeches which have been happening, and this has been documented in the previous book. We started this journey. So first question which many people ask me is, hate me online, somebody is venting something, maybe they had a bad day, right? So something happened, right? Just ignore. But there are so many studies, research studies, psychological studies which have come and then said that aggression online leads to aggression offline. So there are real life consequences for all this hate. Right? So this can become a very divisive agenda, and it can become a very hateful agenda. See, thanks to our country, I think majority of the population and almost all of the population, we actually don't support any divisive or any unnecessary arguments. Right? By nature, we kind of dismiss them, which is why we don't have a major issue today in our country, touch wood. But we did have Maharashtra Brahmin genocide. We did have Kashmir, what happened in Kashmir. These are all reminders to us that we cannot leave this issue alone. Right? And the immediate question which comes is, what is the ultimate goal of Brahmophobia, we call it? The ultimate goal of Brahmophobia is Brahmin genocide, Hindu extinction, and annihilation of Bharatiya civilization. Brahmins just happen to be in the line, and they are the first ones to be targeted. And why are they targeted? Because the colonial rulers thought that the Indian knowledge systems and all the ritual custodians are Brahmins. They thought that, and hence they said, let's first target them first. Right? But once it is done, now the modern discourse says that this civilization is not just one community's property. Every family, every individual, when they teach their next generation their cultures, their practices, their rituals, their ceremonies, their value systems, they are doing what we call a civilizational propagation to the next generation. So everyone who is now the part of the civilization will be targeted one by one until the civilizational values are extincted. Right? So it's not that, how will they do it? Very simple. The next person in the line, after the Brahmins are sidelined or maybe silenced, whatever reason, next person will call, he is being casteist, he is being Brahminical. Then they will use the same template which has been used against the next community also. So this is how the battle will be fought. So it is time that all of us unite and then start addressing these issues. So, and why is it also important economically? Because why is all this being done now also? Because if you see, our greatest contribution to the world, if anybody asks, I think top of the mind, all of you will say maybe Ayurveda and yoga. Right? These are supposed to be billions of dollars worth of industry. Now, I have been asking this whenever I go. Can we name 5 global brands from India which are actually getting all the money from this? They are monetizing this, we call it. See, our Rishi Munis never thought about it, right? They never thought IP, they never thought copyright, everything, right? They gave us the right to copy, actually. Right? So, but are there any Indian brands? Maybe Indian brands, some people say Patanjali is there, right? So they will come up and then say, is there? Now we're Indian brand maybe, but globally we don't have. And globally that is the war, right? Because they would like the Indians to be part of the Western so-called system and be what we call as intellectual sepoys to that framework, right? That is what is the requirement, and they don't want India to take its own civilizational lead role, right? And that's why it is very important, because these 2 industries alone can create thousands of jobs. So much of money can come in with tourism and others. And we see some examples in Kerala. If you go, there are few places where I know of where many foreigners come and then stay and then go. And these places are not even in the cities. Just a nearby airport, 100 kilometers, people are willing to come and go. But then we don't want to do that. We want to build smart cities. Right? So that is again a Western model, right? So we just want to unconsciously take up all the Western models, saying, okay, something is right for a Western model, it will be useful to us also. Okay. So the last thing is, on the petition side, many ask, many people call and then ask me for half an hour questions, 45-minute questions. Why should I sign this petition? And then some questions I am asked, okay, some logical questions are there, right? Why must I sign this petition? What is the benefit? But some people ask, what is the ROI, right? And then what is in it for me, right? It's very difficult to answer such questions because this petition doesn't even take 2 minutes of time. And there is a few, we have put something called FAQ also, called frequently asked question. There is a whole petition is written, there is a PDF document with all the evidence. Then what is the ROI for 2 minutes of work? Right? And that too from their own homes. Right? So I think this is, I tell them that if we don't do this, what happens is we are subscribing to a version of history about our own ancestors. And this version goes like this. I will read one quote from Marquis Hastings. The Marquis of Hastings says, a Hindu appears to be limited to mere animal functions, and even in them indifferent. Their proficiency and skill in the various lines of occupation to which they are restricted is no more than or little more than the dexterity which any animal with a similar conformation, but with no higher intellect than that of a monkey or an elephant or a dog, might be supposedly capable of attaining. This is how our civilization and our ancestors were viewed. Right? So that is the writing, colonial writing. Right? Now, if we are going to, mainstream Indian population is going to systematically serve the Western economic model, no harm, right? Any economic model they may song, but are we going to accept all these things about our ancestors? Right? And how did our ancestors actually live? They were seekers. They were seekers of truth about human birth, about why we are living, what is the reason for it, and what happens after the life ends. So they had questions like that. The famous example I used to say is about Nachiketas. He was asked for the broom. He says, Ayam prati vitikitsa manushe astyateke nayam astiti deke yedat vityam anusishta sulayam varanam yashavaras tridiyata. He says, when the third boon was asked, he says, Yamadharma Raja says, I will give you everything, right? All the things. But he says, no, I don't want. I want to know how to go to the moksha. This is how our ancestors have been, right? So, do we want to be proud of our ancestors? And our ancestors were fearless. I'll give you an example, right? In year is 1323 CE, right? 14th century. Srirangam, a small town. The festival is going on. Then across the banks of the Kaveri river, a messenger comes, a spy comes, and then says, there is an invasion army across the banks. So now they had two choices to make. So they can save their lives, or they have to save the temple and the murtis and others. So what happens? Our ancestors did not think of this as saying, see, this is all anyway Bhagavad Leela, right? So Bhagavan will find a way. I think, no. Last week, I think something also similar was told, right? Bhagavan, anyway, let's not get into that. So Bhagavan will, take care of, this is all Bhagavad Leela. So let's go and protect our lives. They also did not say that, they are not Macaulay educated, right? So they did not say that, see, this Bhagavan is in every place, right? Why only restrict our view to this Murti, right? They did not say. And they did not also say that Bhagavan, we can create this kind of idol multiple times. Only thing, we have to take care of our lives first, right? They did not give any of these arguments. They chose to fight. They chose to fight to the last person. 10,000 plus Sri Vaishnavas died in that battle, and they were not military people. They were very ordinary civilians who were assembled by the so-called temple gods, and they fought. Man, women, elder, child, everybody fought, and like it happened in many invasions, many of them lost their lives as well. And they gave the time for the Murti to be taken out, and the story doesn't end there. The Murti traveled over 50 years across the entire South India to different places through a dedicated set of volunteers. And today we see the Murti there because of our ancestors. The reason our ancestors said that this Murti came to us from Bhagavan, and our ancestors had it, they gave it to us as trustees. We are not the owner, so we cannot make decisions of our Murti. We are the trustees. We should see to that our next generation get this Murti. That is our job. Right? So that is the question all of us in this room, and I urge you to also tell all your friends and relatives and who not, that this is the question we need to ask ourselves. Right? Or do we see ourselves as the trustees of this civilization? Or are we going to say that, oh, I don't think so, that, maybe we are the owners and we are going to make decisions on this. And I see ourselves as trustees, and I think we should do all our part in this, and Ishvara will guide us in this, and I pray to all. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Raman.
I have a question.
Yes, sir, please.
Question is, I worked in Eastern India, Odisha, Bengal, Assam. There are only 3 varnas there. There is no Vaishya varna there. You have only Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and rest are all Shudras. That is why all these Baniyas from North India and all that, they fill that vacuum. Calcutta has more Marwadis than Marwada region, or Assam and Odisha, and even parts of Bihar. In fact, there was an agitation also against Marwadis in 70s in Odisha. So why is it so? If we say 4 varnas, why in Eastern India there are only 3 varnas? But native people, like we have Komatis here, who are Vaishya varna.
Correct.
Or Chettiars in Tamil Nadu.
Tamil Nadu,
But
correct,
there is
sir.
no equivalent caste or varna in East.
So that's a good question. Yeah. So, so this also some of the Indologists were also talking about. Example, in some western parts of the country, they said there was no Kshatriya Varna, right? That Kshatriya Varna was lapsed for a certain period of time and then it came. So what, at least in the limited view which we are seeing today, is that there were times when dual functions were done by certain parts of the segment. So it was not a very isolated way in which they did. So there was overlapping of functions which happened in certain periods, but broadly that classification was there in many parts of the time. In sometimes due to whatever socio-economic situation at that time, right? So they might have had, and especially on the Vaishyas, I think what happened was from the 11th century to the 20th century, right? So Hindus were not operating in a isolated environment. They were operating under the terms of invasions. And the invasions, what was their most important thing they were looking for? They were looking for the money, right? The economic assets of the countries to be sieged, right? So to that extent, some places you will see the subdued view of the Vaishya Varna there. They may not have elaborated themselves that much.
I'm not countering you, but I explain. Orissa was one of the richest states. In fact, Orissa was one of the richest areas. In those times, there was no state. In fact, entire Bali comprises of Oriyas only.
Correct.
There is every year there is an annual ritual of Bali Yatra which starts in the Kartik Purnima day. Now, when such a rich place with so much mercantile activity, still we did not have the Vaishya Varna. So that is something intriguing. I'm not seeking. Just want to explain. Maybe this could be another topic for discussion or research or something trying to find out. Thank you.
Sure, sir. I think it's a very important point. I think we should think about it definitely. Maybe some reasons were there.
Anyone in the audience has any questions for any of our panel members or for the writer?
Pranam sir, my name is Arpit. So thank you for this wonderful book and conversation. So sir, I wanted to understand from the perspective of our state as an institution, because most of the benefits are being dispersed with caste as a distinguishing factor. And as you touched upon that, it does not have any Vedic legitimacy and it is more of a fabrication of the colonial mind. But in reality, it is still an institution in itself, in the Indian polity space. So from a state perspective, how do we find out the best way? Because just to borrow a line from Thomas Sowell, Raghava sir quoted him. So like he says, there are no solutions but only trade-off. So how can we convince our political masters or decision makers to maybe move towards a Varna-based dispensation of resources? And sir, so this I wanted to comprehend from a public policy angle. And second, sir, like as you said, I wanted to understand from a first principle knowledge, like how do you define a Brahmin in today's context, so that I have complete clarity on who is a Brahmin. Like.
Great. Thank you. So I'll answer the first question. If we go back to the 1911 census, if I'm not wrong, right, the British commissioner says he got petitions from various communities. And he says they weighed 1.5 mounds. Okay, so mound is approximately, you can take as 37 kilos, something, 37.5 to be precise. Okay. 1.5 mounds will, mathematics tells me it's about 50 plus kilograms of petitions which has come. Okay. And what was those petitions asking for? They are saying that, so you see, British, you have misclassified me, because the British created a scale, right? On the top, what they call a socially higher scale to a socially lower scale. So let's get it clear, there is no such thing like that in our sampradaya at all, socially higher, socially lower. British created it. Now when this came, what do you think was the petition about? The petition was saying that you have incorrectly classified me into a lower scale, you should be putting me into a higher scale. Now, let's say that Government of India today gives such an opportunity. You think where the petitions will be? So it is about how a state policy drives also the behavior. Right? So it's a function of it. Right? So we are not living in a vacuum. If the state decides certain things, then the people also start adapting it to it. Right? So that is one. The second aspect of it is, at some point of time, the state has to decide in a bipartisan way that these divisive narratives always assume that there is only 100%, right, to start with. And then they say, I want to divide it, I want to divide it, I want to divide it into this. And there is no perfect example in, at least you quoted Thomas Sowell himself, Dr. Thomas Sowell. He himself says there is no perfect way it has ever been done in the human history, that everybody was satisfied with their share. Right? It has never happened, and it is never. It is supposed to be ongoing all the time. So once we accept these kind of divisive narratives, right, then there is no end to it, because that is where our civilization did not even view these things. First of all, this comes from a belief that there is only one life. I need to maximize my life. I need to get. Second belief comes from there is a nature which need to be subdued. Nature is for me to go and grab. So when I am told that I have only one life, and a person is told, let's say that you have only one life, go grab whatever you can, you have to optimize your living, you have to have your happiness, what is the person going to do? So there is immediately, it creates what we call as a oppressor-oppressed narrative. So once that narrative comes, then all the division starts. Then they say, okay, how are we going to cut the 100%? We call one dosa maybe. Let's not call pie, right? We can call it a dosa, right? Let's indigenize that, right? In the dosa, how are you going to cut, right? Somebody will cut this way, then the other person will say, no, I think I'm going to cut it this way, right? Nothing. So, but the thing is, there is only 100%. So it comes from what we call as the scarcity mentality. Our ancestors had an abundance mentality. Right? So it's a different way of looking at it, to answer your question. So the second question, I think maybe I will also request Dr. Arvind Rao Garu to comment on. In the modern society today, how would Brahmin be defined? Okay, for the purpose of this petition, I am saying that whoever is being attacked as Brahmin will have to be protected. Simple, right? So there is nothing beyond that, right? That is very clear. But then the Trirana is what the things talk about. Right, the three debts which a Brahmin has to do today, right? So that is where the practices have to come, right? First, we have to accept that there are three debts, because I always say that all these EMI schemes, right? So we actually were the creators of the EMI. Because by definition, when I am born, I had an EMI for 3. Right? I had to serve my debt to my ancestors, to the Rishi Munis, and to the Vedas. Right? So this is how the Brahmanas were supposed to have the Trirana. Right? So at least have that gratitude and practice of being born in this great civilization and having to contribute to the civilization, having to contribute to all the other communities without any discrimination. That should be the starting point for anybody to be a Brahmin today, in my opinion. Right? Serve the dharma, serve the people. That is how it should be. And technically speaking, that the Brahmin is supposed to have the Agnis. And imagine a person having Agni Upasana in a 12-storied apartment. Right? That is not going to be practical also. So those things are, see, we have not designed our cities for dharma. That is another point I always say. We have designed our cities for being sepoys of the Western world. right? So none of our so-called city life, not just the Brahmin community, I've seen it from many communities, they say they are not able to practice their rituals. They are not able to practice their acharas. We are designing all these huge buildings, which are actually more of a Western concept, which doesn't suit us actually. So that is sorry, I digress there. So going back, that is how a Brahmana should be. But there should be, in my view, a traditional way. It has to be, the Veda Dharma has to be safeguarded and passed it to the future generations. And I see scholars like him already being here, so let's acknowledge that, right? So that has to be done, and more people should take up, in my opinion. But it took us 3-4 generations, right? Because if I went to, I think 2 weeks back, I was in a Brahmana Sabha, they invited me. I said, all these people who are here, they had different occupations. I asked their occupation. I said 3 generations back, if I had asked in this room, or 4 generations back, everybody would have been a Vedika. So now we created a thing called Vedika, and we have created something called Laukika Brahmin. There is no such thing like Laukika Brahmin. It is an oxymoron in my opinion. Right? Not just that, now recently they have created a NRA Brahmin also. That's a new community which has come. So new jati we have created, NRA Brahmin jati. So we start having all these divisions in the society. So now when we coming back, so that has to be somehow rekindled. The Vedic fire has to be rekindled by each of the Brahmanas in the row. The traditional Agni Upasana has to come back, because it is not just for that, it is for, in our, if you see all our Vedic corpus, it says that it is for the benefit of humankind. Right? Like Dr. Nageshwara Garu pointed out, right? The first offering to the pujari is because it is a recognition that he is doing it for Lokakshema. He is doing the prayers for that. That is how the communities were implicitly doing it, and his father has been kind enough to do that. So I think that part has to be revived, and that part has to continue. People, then next question which people ask, and I'm sure you may ask also, how long will it take? We don't know. It took 4 generations. Maybe it may take 4, 5, but every journey begins with a small step, so we'll have to make that step together. Let's do it together. Did I answer your question?
I would like to add one.
Please.
There is a serious crisis in the rural areas. I come from rural area because I still have my house and I keep going there. There are no Purohits, Brahmins and priests. The only religious person you find is a pastor. Naturally. And the temples, old and new temples. True. So old and new temples, there are extreme scarcity of pujaris and archakas and all these. I don't know how, because no, now if a non-Brahmin Hindu who has some doubt about adhyatmic or other religious doubt, whom does he go? There is none to. So the spiritual hunger among Hindus in the rural areas is much more than the hunger for food. How are we going to quench that? This is something that the Hindu society has to decide, because we have, most of us have abandoned our rural areas where still the largest population lives, Hindu population lives. This is a question that everyone has to think about. Thank you.
Please.
I'll add a point.
Somewhere, or the endowment rules, because I think remuneration to the priests also has been a factor for the Valasaravatari.
Not all temples are under the endowment. In fact, there are 7 lakh temples in the country throughout India, of which only 2 lakh temples are under the government. That is, temples which have some earnings have been taken over by the government. Earnings are assets. Non-earning means they are still with the Hindu population. Somehow they are able to manage and then take care of all this.
It's a hand-to-mouth existence.
Yeah, it's hand-to-mouth existence, and also devotion, because most of those people, old people, or some people who are actually working as archakas, is more out of devotion to the dharma. They are staying there rather than for remuneration.
I just wanted to add one point to what Shri Balaji said, and also Shri Nageshwara Rao said. This is about the migration of Brahmins from villages. This has created a religious vacuum. And like any other vacuum, it will be filled by something else, some other agency. So that has been filled by the pastors, very rightly and very, inevitably it has been filled. So my argument has been, in fact, recently also I wrote one book called Indic Religions, Challenges for Survival. In fact, I myself translated it into Telugu also. And there I said, I have seriously advocated that a new type of Brahmins have to be, we have to create new Brahmins. It is not as though these Brahmins are going back to villages, because the Brahmins who were descended, actually, who were born in the so-called Brahmin community, they have all migrated. So we have to create some Brahmins. You have to put Janu to all the people. Like in North India, very many Swamijis are putting Janu. Here also, recently I saw one function where one RSS leader called Mr. Bhagaya, some of you might be knowing, they have got one institution here where they initiated about 150 people into this ceremony called Sandhya, this Upanayanam. And then they have got a school. I went to visit that school, but I learned from him about that. So new Brahmins have to be created who have this dedication, as he said, because Brahmins, they were living, actually, they were having a hand-to-mouth existence in the villages. And so because they didn't have any opportunities in the villages, they migrated to urban areas. And what is now needed is a dedication. The dedication is, in fact, what defines a Brahmin. That Shraddha is what defines a Brahmin, and whoever has that Shraddha is a Brahmin, that's all. There is no other way. Because a Brahmin is supposed to live such a simple life. In fact, all our texts say, Brahmanasya tu dehoyam, what is that sloka? Brahmanasya tu dehoyam, Shudra kamaya neshyate. It is meant, the body of a Brahmin is not meant for all this, earthly pleasures. Then, Kruchraya tapase chaiva, pretya ananta sukhaya cha. It is meant for Kruchra tapas. Kruchra means very tough tapas. It is meant for tough tapas. Tapas means not merely closing our nose and doing pranayama. Tapas is working hard for the community, working hard for dharma. That is what is tapas. And the Brahmin's life was supposed to be like yavad bhriyeta jataram tavat swantam hi dehinam. Whatever the earth can have, whatever the belly can have, that is what is your own. Yavad bhriyeta jataram. Jataram is our belly. Whatever the belly can take, that is your property. And beyond that, if you acquire, you are a thief. Adhikam yo abhimanyeta. So, sastenaha dandamarhati. Stenaha means a thief. So, these were the definitions for a Brahmin, which we read our own books. For example, Bharatam. Bharatam in several places it says, who is a Brahmin? The question is there. So, tam deva brahmanam viduhu, tam deva brahmanam viduhu. There are slokas like that, which say, oh, if you have these characters, you are called a Brahmin. You have to lead a simple life. You have to have that life of Shraddha. So, that Shraddha is absent, and we have also become pleasure seekers. So, that is the reason why we are now in this stage. So, we have to create a new breed of Brahmins. In fact, I advocated to several RSS people. In my book also, I have very elaborately written in my book that Indic Religions, Challenges for Survival. I have given copies to Śrī Balaji and also to Śrī Nageswaravji, and also probably to, I think I gave a book to you. So that is my suggestion for whoever is thinking about this migration of Brahmins and religious vacuum in villages. It is actually like Maoists. Maoists have the policy, capture the villages and you capture the towns. So the same thing has happened in the case of Abrahamic religions. They have captured the villages. Now they will capture the towns. It's only a matter of time.
Thank you.
I think one last question.
Namaste, sir. My name is Shiv Prasad.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what is the role of IKS education system in Viksit Bharat 2047 and India becoming Vishwaguru? And what are the real actionable steps we should take so that our real Sanatana Dharma knowledge through which our Bharat develops and we play a prominent role in the upcoming new world order, sir?
Sir, thank you, sir. It's an excellent question. And I think we have the most expert on IKS, Sri Raghava Krishna Garu here, right? So I think it is a misdirected question. Anyway, I will answer that. I will ask him to add your comment. Sir, my view is that our Rishi Munis have given this civilization a unique gift in terms of their knowledges. And that knowledge system has to be protected, so which is what the IKS initiative broadly looks at. And also the traditional practices need to be revived. But it should also be an academic view. In my view, I think it should also become very more practical, I would say. Like for example, I think we are in Hyderabad today. If my memory serves right, there is one Shri Gaud family which used to give fish medicine, a fish-based medicine for asthma cure. Right? I remember that in somewhere in I think 2 decades back, I think somebody went to court saying that I think this is all IP, you should come and disclose it and other stuff. But now, for at least I know it has happened for 30 years, that family has been sincerely doing it without any monetary benefits or anything. They are just doing it as a tradition. But as the government agencies come forward to say, now I'll make a small list of all these people who are coming. Let me do a study for 6 months or after 1 year or after 2 years. What are the benefits of it? Such a system is what we are lacking today. So while what happens is, well, we all know certain things work, but the modern world view is that, oh, it is working means I am not going to take your Sabda Pramana. I am going to take your Pramana. That should be written in a particular way, supposed to be some peer reviewed, then only they will accept. Right? Either we have to find a way to kind of outsmart that system by saying that we will create our own peer reviews, or we will have to follow that system. But today I am not sure whether the IKS system will face that roadblock, because at some point it has to become mainstream. Right? That's my view on that. And yes, if India has to become the superpower, and we all pray and hope that it does, I think IKS and our knowledge systems are required. We cannot try to climb on, say, based on the Western foundations, because those foundations are flaky. Right? Ours is this most solid foundation. We should climb on that. That's my view. Raghava, your views.
I think we covered it. I think the short answer is we need to build capacity from school to universities to public intellectuals. That includes curriculum, that includes institutions, all of those things we need to build. The answer is to build.
Namaskaram. My name is Raghuram Avadhanam. I hail from a town near Pushpagiri Kshetra. So my ancestors were actually Vedic scholars, and we run Vedic Pathshalas and all. It's been 2 generations that we migrated into cities, and we're all engineers, my parents and all. But today I want to revive it. I've constructed a temple, Ramalayam temple, that actually made the village stay. And we regularly go there. Now I'm constructing another Lalita Amar temple with Shakti. So I wanted to actually say that, all the 3, Vaishnava, Shaiva and Shakti, all 3 can be at one place and there won't be any difference. But what I see is, it's a journey for me and my family now, slowly coming. After I did the Bhumi Puja, the entire place got vibration, and people are coming forward. Great. My family also, a lot of ifs and buts, they're all coming united now. We formed some trust and all. What I have a question, in fact, Bharavi, he also gave me some suggestion. Should we go for a Gurukula or should we go for a Veda Pathshala? Because Veda Pathshala is only catering to Brahmins, and it's going to teach Vedas, which will not help actually my place, because all the other communities will not get benefit from that. But yes, pujaris, archakas and other things, we should create some remuneration there. So I'm doing other maybe Ayurvedic hospital or naturopathy hospital, some kind of a pilgrimage come resort. Because right now the MLA also is very active there. He wants to do revival of the place. So Gurukul, if I have to start, I can go to IKS, I can start it. But a lot of people say, if you go and attach to, let's say, I go to Sringeri, they give their prescription of things. If I go to Pushpagiri Matham, they'll give their own prescription. If I go to, your Kanchi, they'll give their prescription. Even the IKS, again, it started like, this is my IKS, this is my IKS. So what is the guidance for us to go forward like in this journey? Please.
There is no need to, in order to, if you want to start your Gurukula, and we do not have a halal certification kind of a system, where if you are certified by particular matha, that you are authentic. I can give you our own story of Kameshwari Foundation, where we have nurtured a cultural leader, I would call, one of my brother's Shishya, who hails from a small, village called Ramgadi near Chhindwada, Madhya Pradesh. So where he started a Gurukula. So now the situation is that 70% of the children of that particular village are students of, and at one point in time it became such that no children were going to the government school, and government school started having problems because everyone were coming to our Gurukula because we were catering that. And the whole point was, one, to instill the dharmic ethos, and not only that, to even address, because until then the children were actually going to the corporate schools that were there in the town, and they were putting all their savings and money into that particular system of education. So there is a possibility, and there we do have a our Gurukula. You can visit them. So there is no need to. If at all, if you are associated with any matha, that is fine. But I can show you that there is no need to do that. And if you go through that, it's a good path, but that is not the only path for acceptance. Gurukula, as you rightly said, if you want to address the real rural need, then a Gurukula definitely. And that is how our model was also. We had Vidhi Badulu. So every no need, sir. He can start his own this thing.
If he wants to avoid the trouble of managing and everything, he can start a Saraswati
Yeah.
where some system will come, and then he will be assisting all them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my question, other question was. See, we are divided by vegetarian, non-vegetarian, we are divided by Brahmin, non-Brahmin, we are divided by, again, mathas. Somebody says Kanchi is better, somebody. So how do I align all these guys?
It is not the division that is actually there, sir. It is that we are thinking that there is a division. I could say, I studied in Kanchi, and I am very much closely associated with Kanchi Matha. Recently, I have been to Sringeri to Mahavakyartha Sadas. I have been. So, for us, all of the mathas are nothing but a representation of dharma. So, it is, okay, there would be wars between intersectarian or inter-matha wars. I think we are not, the most of the crowd are not associated with those wars. You do have, right? You do have a Prabhas fans association, you do have a Chiranjeevi fans association who will be, that is the hardcore, that fringe will definitely be there. But for us, it is the larger goal of serving dharma and re-establishing the same ethos. So I don't think that should be any problem.
I think one point in time we'll get aligned, because that 4 mathas established by Shankaracharya, we are not actually aligned in that way. That's what.
Sir, maybe I'll just ask one clarification from you. When you say Gurukula, who will be the students? Is it male, female? All, right? So which I think is very good, because I wanted to bring it up because today the problem facing many communities, especially the Brahmin community on the Vedic side, is that the boys go into the Gurukulam and there is no equivalent for a girl. And the girl goes to modern education and then they become employed in companies and this. So we have a serious situation, at least in some parts, where Vedic scholars are not able to get married.
And that is why Kanchi Paramacharya has started the Sampradaya
thing. So I think we are doing a very good thing, sir. And my only request to you, since you asked for this, I think the best is your Dharmacharya, whoever is your Dharmacharya for your Achara, you can consult him. They will be able to guide you on what is proper for your Acharya. That is the other part which needs to be done. Thank you, and I wish you all the best and praise to Ishvara for your success in this. Right.
Not from religion, but from the craft angle, since we are here in this venue.
Yes, sir.
We are facing the same problem. The traditional craftsmen are all migrating not only from their place, from the craft.
Correct.
So we have to see what is possible to revive, what is not possible. And we are noticing that in these training programs, it is the non-community people who are doing better, who are coming in, and they're becoming masters, and they're doing very well. So the need of the hour is to sustain the craft, not whether to sustain the traditional craftsmen. So it's very similar, because all of us, this culture is across all parameters, not just about religion, it's about everything, our food, clothing, whatever.
Yes, absolutely correct. In fact, I think the British did so much to decimate our artisan community, right, which is understated. I think in the view of, I think Lord Bentinck, who said that the soils of India are bleached by the bones of the cotton weavers. So that is how much people suffered. The weaving community suffered, the artisan community suffered because natural day communities. Yes, I was coming to that. India was at one point clothing the world, they called it. Right? So now we import, or maybe we don't.
Circular economy.
Correct.
Our villages were circular economy completely. You never depended on somebody else. But today we waste, and our wastage was minimal if you go back to our old way of living. Everything in the house got used somewhere. The drainage, except for fishes, everything was recycled. From your clothes to thing. Your utilization was minimalistic. Today the modern mantra is circular economy, minimalism, and so many other things that are coming. Your kalamkari or any natural dye, why did they have techniques to bring out the colors by washing in river? Because the water that washed took the dye and made the water more potent for the farmers down the line.
Correct.
But today when you brought in chemical colors, you successfully killed the whole system.
Sir, what happened was, I think we had all the solutions, we got it ingrained in our system, but we forgot that, right, we are against a different way of thinking where first a problem will be created. Like plastic is a problem which was created. 50 years back it was sold to us saying plastic is so good, plastic is so good. Now we are being sold a solution also, plastic is so bad, now we have to go back, right? So that is how, because sometimes they say, right, we have a pearl in the hand, right, but we don't know it, right? So we go through other journeys, others are going through the journey, but we are also going, unfortunately, with them, without realizing that we are actually part of that. It's a very good statement. Yes. Thank you.
That brings us to the close of an invigorating event. I think it's more of a call to come together. It's not a reflection in isolation. And I thank everyone, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Very, very grateful. And we will take this as a call to action to, not just in Brhat, but also collaborate with Pragya Bharati and all other like-minded institutions. I think the real superpower is the art of collaboration. And I think one of the things that we need is the people who can collaborate. Right? So I also take this as a call for capacity development in humans. Thank you so much.